Parents of bullies, how did you find out your child was a bully? And how did you deal with it? Story 1. My best friends have a child that is a huge bully. I can tell you they denied it for probably 2 years, fought every accusation and story or anything bad said about the kid. Finally, when the kid was 11 or 12, they dropped him off at a relative's house to hang out with the cousins for the day. They left, but had to return about 10 minutes later to pick something up. They saw him slapping one of the other kids and saying how their parents didn't love them and were trying to sell them. That was one of the more minor things the kid had been accused of doing. They are pretty sure he shoved another kid down and broke his arm. They apologized to everyone the kid had ever been around, both for the kid's behavior and for them being stupid and denying it. As far as punishing the kid, they took everything except the dresser and bed out of the kid's room, making it almost like a jail cell. That was over a year ago, and he still just has the bed and dresser. He's gotten much nicer, but it's hard to tell if it's an act or not. Story 2. I caught my son and his friend singling out a younger kid who was a bit awkward and watched from a distance a bit as they mocked him. My initial response shocked me pure rage at my own child for finding he could do this. I stepped away, had a private freak out, then went over to the group. By the time I got there, it was over. The bullying boys had moved on to a new game and the child who was bullied was crying on a jungle gym. I first went to the bullied boy and got down with him and apologized. I explained to him that I expect better from my son and it hurt me to see him hurt too, meaning the bullied boy. I then asked him if I could help make it better. He agreed. I approached my son, took him aside and told him I saw everything. I then explained everything I saw. I then told him to look at the other boy who was crying. I said that is how I feel too. My son fell apart. I asked him if he was ready to make it right and he agreed. I had him go stand with the bullied boy. Then I got the other boys, all of whom I know very well. I brought them all together, explained what I saw and how painful and disappointing it was to see that they are all better and smarter and more sensitive than to do that. They apologized and there were hugs. And then I assured all of them that if I ever saw that again there would be serious consequences and parents would be involved. It got real for them. This was before the start of the school day on the playground. Then I told the teachers everything that happened and asked them to be watchful for the bullied boy. Then I went to my car and sobbed for about 12 hours. Story 3. My friend's son was a bully. When he was called into the school and told all this by the administration, he couldn't believe it. He promised he would take care of it. For the next week this guy bullied the out of his son, made fun of him for every little thing. After he ate dinner he would give him some form of dessert and right when his kid was going to eat it he would grab it and either eat it or throw it down the garbage disposable. He teased him if he couldn't keep up with his father in something they were doing. He made fun of him when he missed a shot playing b-ball. After a week he sat him down and asked him if he had felt good to be made fun of, have your stuff taken away, etc. And he explained that he was doing the same stuff to the kids in his school, and I guess that really hit home with his 8-year-old son. He hasn't bullied anyone since, and him and his father have a great relationship now. He coaches all his son's teams, plays video games with him, and the kid has a ton of friends now and is extremely polite. When he told me what he was doing I couldn't believe it all. But it worked. It's not something I would recommend doing, but it worked for them. 6 years later and I would be proud to call this teenager my son. Story 4. My kid tried bullying once. He used a racial slur on another child. He was grounded for 2 weeks. Apart from apologizing in person, he also had to write a letter of apology to the kid and the school principal who caught him in the act, and he had to write a report on why he should respect other people. His school principal said he'd never seen a parent react quite so strongly, and wished we all would. By the way, the kid he bullied and he are now good friends. I will do the same if any of his siblings tried as well. They've heard enough horror stories from my wife and I. We were both bullied pretty heavily in school. They should know better. Story 5. My son is 4 and has started some bullying behavior. He will call other kids stupid just out of the blue, or talk openly about how much cooler better his choice is than some other kids. His mom and I pretty much nip it in the bud right there. We tell him that saying things like that is not cool, and we have him go up to the kid, apologize, and then compliment them. I really hope that this is just a phase. Story 6. Not his fault. All his classmates are all gay wads. I was a bully once in grade school. I bullied a kid named Eric because he was the smallest one in the class, and I wanted to distract the attention from me onto him. That same year he was diagnosed with cancer, and even as an immature kid I felt like a huge. I did it because I was tired of being the victim, so I sought out another victim to take the bullying. I'm a junior in college now, and Eric is a cancer survivor. If you ever get to read this, I apologize from the bottom of my heart, Eric. I never bullied anyone again, but I never should have done it in the first place. Story 7. I'm not a parent, but my sister was a bully. Racial slurs, physical violence, stealing and hiding stuff from kids, even cyberbullying when she got to high school. My parents didn't pay much attention to it because they had my younger brother to worry about newborn at the beginning of all this, but that kinda left me to be bullied too. I'll skip all the stories, but let's just say there was a lot of physical and verbal abuse. My parents somewhat realized she was a bully when she got called to the principal's office for calling a girl the N-word. My mom said it was because she was provoked, but my dad knew she was just being mean to get attention. My mom didn't realize she was a bully until my little brother started crying and saying he didn't want me to be alone with her. He was 5 at this point, so he knew something was wrong. Even though I couldn't speak up, I eventually had to man up and tell my parents about it, and they said they would talk to her, and that's what they did. They only talked to her, didn't spank her, didn't take anything away, just warned her about how it could hurt her. She didn't listen. I continued to get bullied by her, and she kept getting in trouble at school, but they would never call home. she got away with it. She is still a bully and has been kicked out of college, lost 3 jobs and is facing an assault lawsuit from a former coworker. May seem like an extreme story, but it's happening. My parents really got the message when she got kicked out of school and lost her first job. My parents have decided that she is on her own. TLDR, sister was a major bully. Parents had a talk and nothing else. Sister is now in major legal and financial trouble because of assault anger problems. Sorry for it not being what the question asked, but I hope telling this story shows parents how bullying can really mess people up and how they need to take action. Edit. Thank you all for showing support and talking about how it really is difficult to decide how to go about preventing this for the parents on the thread. When this comes up, people focus on what could have been done, and am still stuck in what has been done. I really appreciate it when someone realizes that she isn't exactly a victim of poor parenting, and that other people were hurt. My brother and I go see a counselor now, and he and I are very close. Families aren't always completely broken by things like this, and hopefully after she gets help we can be a better family. For record, the school did suggest she speak to a counselor or therapist and even referred her to 3 different people, but she hid it from our parents and refused to go. She saw one 2 months ago and the only mental illness found is just anger management and self-control issues. She is being tested again for hormone imbalances and other possible reasons for her behavior. I know this because the doctors are keeping my family in the loop with only her medical status. We don't call and talk about anything else. Edit. 2 My parents did teach us well. My brother and I are very well off, we have a good education and we headed down a good path. The problem was my mom was very strict, she yelled a lot and she hit us a lot as discipline. I can't help but feel like she turned to bullying others because she learned to be controlling at home. And it's not like my parents dodged the responsibility, it was hidden from them until she hit high school. At that point they had a you should know better mentality, which yes, was a wrong way to go about it in hindsight. My point is, my parents did not skip teaching us how to be polite or how to treat others, she just ignored their lessons. Story 8 I bullied a girl in elementary school who had no friends. My mother began inviting her over every Saturday and would drag us out to museums and such. I was forced to be nice to the girl and play with her every damned weekend until we actually became friends. Story 9 I recently heard an author on the radio book is called Bully Nation talking about addressing bullying. I was really impressed by her insights. One thing she talked about is how parents are often unwilling to accept that their children are bullying others because we approach bullies as us versus them. If your child bullies another child, they are now labeled as a bully. And bullies are horrible bad people. With that mentality, the parent knows their child isn't a horrible bad person, so clearly they weren't really bullying or it wasn't that bad. She went on to describe that we treat bullying different than any other type of learning. We tell our kids what not to do and expect them to get it right from then on. She compared it to teaching them the quadratic formula and asking them to never use it incorrectly. That's obviously not going to happen for most kids. Her point is that children that bully other children may be making mistakes rather than being horrible bad people. And we need to start changing our perceptions on that. We also need to start teaching kids to be more prepared for situations where they might make a mistake and bully another child. I'm sure her book goes into detail about that. I don't have an idea how you go about teaching a kid those kind of things. Story 10 I was bullied by an older kid in the neighborhood. I was 3, she was 7. She used to knock me off my big wheel and pull my hair till I cried. My dad told me that the next time she did that to me, I should grab a hold of her hair and just start running. Next day she knocked me off my big wheel. The parents hear the screaming coming from the sidewalk. I had Jessie by her pigtails and was dragging her down the street. She never bullied me again. And that is how her mom found out that she was a bully. Story 11 I am not a parent, I am a brother. My dad is visiting and wanted to add his input on this topic. I raised 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls, all 1 year apart. My middle son was always the one to get picked on and bullied by the others because he was the nicest and least competitive and the smartest by far. They called him names and especially my oldest son would beat him up. I know I should have done more for him. I always told them that one day he would grow up to be bigger than them and they wouldn't be able to hurt him anymore. Well, true to what I said, that was the most successful of my kids. He joined the Marine Corps and got married, and he'll be damned if he isn't the biggest now by 50 pounds. It really got to me about 2 years ago when he came home to visit, and my oldest, who bullied him the most, who now is an adult with a wife and kids with tears in his eyes, apologized to him. He said he was the best out of all of the kids and made the most of his life, and he was so sorry for ever being mean to him. It was probably one of the proudest moments of my life seeing him admit how wrong he was as a kid. I'm proud of all my children, and I hope I live long enough to see them become really successful. And buy me a boat to retire on. That's all I got, won't lie. Got a little teary-eyed reading that. My dad's in his 60s now and says them internet people don't need to know his has the cancers. Hope this old son of a bitch lives to 110. I love my dad. Story 12 The parents of my bully didn't give 2 flying shits. Took my parents, who were on the PDA, to bring it up with the principal repeatedly to get the kids sent to the troubled kids school across town. He turned out a nicer guy after that, but I still hated him. Then he died in Iraq and I didn't really feel bad about it. Don't really feel anything about that. Story 13 At one point in middle school grade 8, I unintentionally became a bully to a girl, as did several other students. It was very out of character to me, and I can't even begin to explain why it ever happened. It's ironic, because the 2 years prior I had 2 different bullies, both named Pat, that antagonized me. Considering that, it was so weird that I did it myself. It was a bunch of immature laughing and mocking. I just remember when a counselor came into the class to talk to all of us bastards. At that moment it became very clear to me that this stuff was really hurting. It was a true moment of empathy. I felt really bad. I'm not sure how everyone else felt, but the bullying stopped completely right then as far as I could tell. In high school I saw her walking home. I caught up with her and walked with her. We talked about a lot of things, but the only part that mattered was when I apologized for being so mean to her. She was a good person, and I still consider this one of the moments in my life I am most ashamed. It never involved my parents, although if it had, I would have gotten some much-deserved punishment. How I acted then still haunts me when I think about it. Never underestimate your own ability to be worse than you ever thought possible. There is a potential for villainy hiding in the insecurities and fears of us all. Story 14. Shoot, I was really hoping there would be something useful on here. My 5-year-old daughter isn't what I would call a bully, but she's really bossy. She is super cute and smart, and all the kids want to be her friend, but she's not the greatest friend, especially to the kids who are closest to her and worship the ground she walks on. We have talked endlessly about being a good friend, have given her consequences for any time she hasn't been cool to someone, and are constantly strategizing on how to deal with various issues. She understands completely on an intellectual level how to be a good friend, but when she gets frustrated, i.e., someone not doing what she wants them to do, she will get mean, saying things like, if you don't do XYZ I won't be your friend anymore, or if you tell your mom what I say I won't be your friend. She has really hurt people's feeling with some of the stuff she has said. Her brother died 8 months ago, and while I know that some of her behavior is related to wanting more control in her life, she has always had this in her. It's just worse now. She goes to therapy to deal with her grief, and we deal with it at home as well. Other than the friend thing, she is doing amazingly well considering she lost her brother. My hope is that she will encounter people who won't take any of her, as she seems to respond really well to that. We don't have these issues at home because she respects us and we don't let her boss us around, but other 5-year-olds often don't demand respect. She is a wonderful, funny, amazing kid, and I worry that she will grow up lonely because people will get tired of her controlling ways. Story 15. No child that has bullied my own child has ever even apologized for their behavior. Teachers have never done anything, nor have parents, to stop it. He is now very wary of what all people say and do, which is a horrible thing he must endure. I would say that most bullies' parents are in denial of the issues, and many comments as to how they deal with them may well be few and far between, but excellent question. Story 16. Yeah, my kid was one for a bit, and it was my fault. I did not have the best childhood. I had to fight all the time and ended up not spending my life in prison thanks to some key choices I decided to make to take a different path, but I would often tell stories. Also, I told my kids fighting is okay if they're defending themselves or protecting someone else. I'm not afraid of confrontation and have raised my kids to not fear it as well. Well, one day I was called to school and the principal had a chat with me about what my elementary school son was doing. He was picking on kids. He was teasing kids until he made them cry. He would slug the out of kids and leave bruises on them. I was shocked. I had always thought my son was a good kid. The really weird thing was he was totally honest. He'd get caught and he'd tell the principal exactly what he did and to who, flabbergasted the principal. Well, I took my boy for a drive and we had a chat. I told him what the principal told me he had been doing. I asked him why. He said he didn't know, which is most kids' replies. And I started talking about I messes up being his dad. I had done something wrong. He said no, dad. Then he fessed up he wanted to be tough like I was when I was a kid. Yeah, me telling stories about my childhood and the I did was a bad idea. He had it in his mind that he needed to be like me, and he needed to be mean in order to be tough, so we had a really long talk about how I was bad. He didn't like that, but I told him I was very bad, but I stopped being bad. I made the choice to be good. And now I'm a good guy, not a bad guy. And we talked about things bad guys do. He got it. He really got it. He's an awesome teenager. He has a group of geek friends and they call him the bully repellent in the high school they go to. I have a vivid memory from early elementary school of standing on top of the jungle gym and watching the only kid with glasses walk past, and yelling, "Hey, 4 eyes, you look stupid, haha." Literally 2 days later I went to the optometrist and got my own glasses. I never apologized to the kid, but I also realized how people aren't defined by their circumstances, and I certainly stopped doing that kind of thing anymore. Story 17. I'll answer in lieu of my father as he doesn't read it. Long story short, he went ballistic. I had been bullied rather harshly for a couple years in grade school, but I never said anything about it. One day, a family friend's kid witnessed said bullying, red beating, and told his parents, who told my parents. That night my dad wasn't home. Turns out he was going around to all my bullies' houses and absolutely berating their parents. He was pissed. Didn't really help my cause much. After that he told me it was fine to fight back to defend myself, even if it got me in trouble. Time took its course, and now I'm pretty good friends with a bunch of those guys 20 years later. Story 18. I now fear what my toddler daughter is going to become. Holy, ITT2 non-parent ISNT, your parenting tactic too extreme. OMG, I can barely see you from atop my high horse. Story 19. Parents of bullies are usually just as big, if not bigger pieces of, than their child. If you bully your child, whether emotionally, physically, or verbally, your kids will do it to others, unless given that love and support elsewhere. Most children of bullies become bullies themselves. Edit: no, not all kids end up as bullies if their parents were bullies, but there is no discounting the emotional scarring these kids receive. Story 20. My nephew didn't start to bullying until he hit high school and befriended the wrong types of kids. My sister was pretty much in denial about it until he was suspended for fighting. Her first reaction was to ground him, which didn't help at all. he was still getting in trouble and his grades were declining. She got him a tutor and he ended up getting in trouble with the law when he and his stupid friends egged the tutor. After that, they took away all of his privileges. No TV, video games, computer unless monitored use for schoolwork, going out, etc. They started charging him rent, which meant he had to get a job. If he didn't pay, he'd have to go stay at his grandma's, who would make him go to church and hang out with her old lady friends. He started stealing from his workplace to pay his rent. So obviously this solution was not working at all. Finally his dad worked out an arrangement that during their equivalent of homeroom, they would go to each classroom to discuss bullying. He'd make his son confess what he has done in the past and open up a dialogue about how others have felt after being bullied. After going to every single class and hearing firsthand how shitty people were made to feel, he realized what he was doing was awful and can stay with people for a long time even after the bullying ended for them. He didn't want to be the person somebody remembers as the reason high school was for them. Story 21. We only had one incident. Got a note home from the school that our daughter was involved with a bullying incident. She and a couple other girls were bullying one girl in the class. Her school is supposed to have a zero-tolerance policy, but there was no punishment from the school at all. The note was all they did. I wasn't impressed by that, so we went all out. We emptied her room, took all her toys, all her dress-up stuff, her TV privileges, her gaming privileges, everything but the sport she was signed up for that we paid for, told her she had to earn it all back. She wrote letters of apology to the girl she bullied and then wrote different letters to the girls she was bullying with, and teachers got one, and then we had her write a letter to the rest of the class explaining why bullying was wrong and why she was sorry. She got punished way more than the other girls did, and she complained about this a lot. We responded that we didn't care how the other girls got punished because that was their parents' job, not ours. I had been bullied a lot, so for her to be bullying other kids was horrifying to me. Thankfully she has learned the lesson. I hope so anyways. That was almost 2 years ago and there hasn't been any sign of occurrence. Story 22. The kid that bullied me up until 3 years ago's parents denied it constantly. One day I snapped and put him in the hospital. They kinda realized that their son instigated it when everyone that was there and the gym teacher told them what had happened. Apparently they took everything out of his room, save for a crappy mattress and a blanket, and didn't give him anything back until last year. That kid's self-esteem and pretty any chance of regaining it are long gone, which is fine by me. Dude was a piece of. Story 23. I spy with my little eye for comments that don't have to do with the question did I win. I'd like to add my 2 cents of what happened when bullying behavior was reported. My stepson claimed that he was being bullied by 2 kids while walking home each day in elementary school. My husband spoke to the principal about it once. Since the behavior continued, my husband went back in and told her that if she didn't do something, he just might have to. I have no idea what he'd actually do, but with that, the principal hid in the woods across the street from the school that very afternoon, and witnessed the 2 boys throwing rocks at my stepson. She marched them right back to school where she dealt with it there, and the bullying stopped cold. He's in high school now, and things are fine. I like that she did that, but didn't like that she had to be told twice. Story 24. My stepson is a reformed bully. He was just horrible, stabbing kids with pencils, chasing his teacher with scissors, punching, scratching, kicking, yelling, you name it he did it. We found out first from his mom, who he was living with at the time, and she would call and ask my husband to discipline him over the phone because for some reason she was incapable of doing it herself. We got custody of him and this behavior continued. He basically felt that if he didn't get his way, that gave him the right to do what he needed to do until he got what he wanted. And I mean anything. This behavior was taught to him by his mother, who did the same thing when she did not get what she wanted, which included hitting my husband and threatening him with knives in front of my stepson. We tried everything under the sun and nothing worked until we flat out told him that he was acting like his mom and that her behavior was wrong and the reason that his parents were no longer together. Suddenly it was like a switch clicked in him and he stopped with the hitting but still was pretty much a bag with his attitude. It took a year of convincing his mom that she needed to speak to him about her behavior and admit that it was wrong. When she finally did and told him she was wrong for hitting his dad, that she had only been concerned with herself because she was in a bad way at the time, he changed completely. He is now a straight A student, has been recognized several times for his outstanding behavior and just all around rocks. He's 8 years old and knows how to fold his own clothes, gets up every morning on his own to shower and dress. He takes out the trash and recyclables, feeds and waters the dog, reads daily and actively reads nutrition facts to make sure he doesn't consume too much sugar and sodium. We don't make him do any of this. He does it because he wants to help and be responsible. We got lucky. Story 25. Not particularly what you wanted, but it was really good parenting. When I went into secondary school I was scared out of my mind. There were these particular boys who would call me all sorts, and me not being the fighting kind, I was an easy target. What made it easier was that I had epilepsy. So when they found out, they took it as a sign to take the out of me 247, until I just broke down in the middle of lunch and walked to the head teacher principal office. Parents got involved and the boys got suspended. What was great was that one of the mums made their son write a letter. A huge 2-sided A4 letter explaining how sorry he was and how he knew I couldn't control it. It also stated the boys and had some form of seizures regularly and that his mother was disappointed with him. I told him how much a letter like that meant to me and we became mutual friends. As for the others, they stopped the bullying. Story 26. I think you're going to have trouble finding content. My experiences with the parents of bullies is that they have all sorts of issues about realizing their kids are bullies. that's why bullying doesn't get effectively curtailed in most cases. Story 27. We have a 4-year-old girl in the kiddie room I work at who can't seem to figure out why the other kids don't want to play with her. I won't say she's a bully, but she's very bossy. She never offers to play what the other girls are playing, but always wants them to stop what they're doing in order to play with her. She pouts when they don't want to play with her and I feel bad about it, but I'm not going to force kids to play with her. Whenever we try talking to her about trying to play what the other kids are playing, she acts like she's the victim. Well, it's not all about them. She's a sweet and very intelligent girl who I think doesn't have the best home life. I hope that she figures out how to keep friends eventually. Story 28. I have 2 school-aged kids. The oldest was apparently a bully for a few weeks at her new school before I found out about it. When I found out, I took all privileges away: games, TV, playdates with friends, phone calls, and asked her sister to look out for the kids that were getting picked on. About a week into this, I get a note from a teacher describing the funniest thing: your youngest child was in a confrontation with her sister today. I heard the older child telling a peer that they were stupid. Soon youngest then told Steph, oldest, you're one to talk. That potato is smarter than you. I know, 'cause I have seen your grades, at which point the entire group started laughing. Steph has ceased picking on other kids according to her teacher, and her sister's most recent burn involved Cool Ranch Doritos, and that eating them doesn't make you any cooler. They are 10 and 8. Apparently having your younger sibling make you look like a moron in front of classmates is enough to break bad behavior. And also, it got the older one to buckle down with her schoolwork. Grades have came up a whole letter grade in the last 4 weeks. Story 29. When my mom was a kid, she was a bully. She got into fights all the time. One girl in particular she had been tormenting for quite some time with plenty of childish bully classics. At the height of it all, my mom said she beat the out of this poor girl. The next day my mom was at home and she answered the door, and there was her victim, black and blue, and the girl's mother. The girl's mom asked to speak with my grandma. My mom was sure she was in for it when my grandma came to the door. Instead of ratting out my mom, or discussing the beating or any of the bullying, this girl's mother said to my grandma, "My daughter is having a birthday party this Saturday and we would really like it if Joe came to it." She went to the party, completely humbled. Her mom never found out that she was a terrible bully, and my mom never did any of that again. I don't think this is the approach I'd take if someone was bullying my kid, but it paid off in this case, and I think it's interesting that this woman would use this tact, and even stranger that it worked at humbling my mother and making her feel empathy for her victim, edit words and spelling and stuff. Story 30. Bullied child here. My parents confronted a couple of my bullies. Unanimously their opinion was he's not going to amount to much. You want me to take this away from him too? Not 1, not 2, but 3 separate families. Same response. One even got decent grades and probably went to university. Story 31. I am a little late to the party here, but I feel this story is too funny to not share. On my mom's side of the family there are 3 couples including my parents, and they all had a son within 5 months of each other, so I have 2 cousins extremely close in age, of which I am the youngest. When we were about 18 months old, if that, my family and my aunt's family were all staying at my grandparents' cabin for a month during the summer. This aunt had the oldest kid born in January versus me in April, and so he was the biggest because a few months makes a big difference at that age. Anyways, they would always put us down to play with one another and go hang out as adults, and either my grandparents or parents would end up watching us. My cousin was all month. He would constantly take the toys I would be playing with or destroy my block forts, etc. My parents and grandparents would try to intervene or tell my aunt, but my aunt would always ignore them, brush it off, or tell them to leave her son alone. I was a pretty chill baby, so I never responded or even cried really, and would just move on to another toy. The last few days we were there, the entire family was sitting in the living room on couches set up in a horseshoe shape, with my cousin and I playing in the middle, while my cousin decided that he wanted my soother and pulled it out of my mouth and tried to take it from me. I was very attached to that soother when I was a baby, to the point where even my parents had trouble getting it from me. Well, after a month of abuse, my 18-month-old self apparently thought, you can take my toys, but God help you if you take my soother, and I decked my cousin in the face and knocked him out. Took my soother back and continued happily playing with my toys. Cousin unconscious beside me. Needless to say, my aunt was livid and screamed about how I should be punished and why wasn't anyone doing anything. Everyone else calmly told her that they warned her that her kid was bullying me and he got what he deserved. My grandpa was apparently quite proud, so that was a rude awakening for my aunt that her kid was a bully. Fortunately for them, that was basically all it took to deal with it, and my cousin has been a cool enough dude since. TLDR knocked my cousin out when we were 18 months old in front of the entire family because he tried to bully me. Playpen justice was served. Edit formatting. Story 32. Not a parent, but I have a tale. When I was in, let's say, 4th grade, my parents finally put a phone in my room so I could chat with friends. It was one of those orange and purple Nickelodeon phones that had a big long curly cord, and I was so thrilled. I had always been a pretty good kid. I had a lot of friends, but we weren't the cool kids, so we got picked on sometimes. I never really bullied anyone before this. A girl who we will call Emily I had been friends with told some other people about my crush on a boy in our class. The huge problems of a 4th grader, right? I got mad at her and wanted revenge, so I used my new phone for evil. I had a friend come over to my house and we would prank call Emily's house. We would just call, ask for Emily, and then when she answered we would hang up on her like YL. We must have done this well over 100 times over the course of a week. My parents found out somehow. I think caller ID was involved. But one day I came home from school and my phone was gone. as well as my TV out of my room. I was confused. I had no idea how they could have found out about all the calls. I heard a knock on the door and my dad following me from our foyer, so I walk over to see a cop standing in our living room. I stood there in silence. As he said, "Are you woman in flannel? Your parents gave me a call, we need to have a chat. Prank calling is never funny and the people you were harassing were very scared. Something like this could have you wound up in jail or some lie like that." Man, I about my pants and never bullied anyone ever again after that.